After you've downloaded the zip file, you go ahead and open that up. Double-click on the folder. They look like this guy right here. And then these folders are the contents of what's in what we call the ALS file. The ALS file is the Ableton storage device, but it doesn't contain all of the information. So we do a big collect all and save, and then that kind of Ableton splits it up into different folders. Samples, that's consolidated files, imported files, and then we have a stems folder where we keep kind of the main multi-track wave forms or files. So ALS file is the only thing that you need to open. We've opened the folder, and it kind of just looks like this. This is a basic Ableton session. You'll see we have this test group up here. That's connected to this test button on the MIDI controller here. And so because we've started to route SMPTE to every song, whether we use it or not, as far as I understand, we didn't want to accidentally fire a SMPTE lighting, whatever it's called. So we've created a test folder for the MDs or the drummers to fire so that nothing kind of happens on accident. So that's this test button. Right under that, we have this MIDI folder. Funny enough, there are no MIDI files in this MIDI folder. They're all audio files. But it's the way that we've kind of just separated things out. So the 1K tone is that blessed thing that helps us have our backup rig. It never fails. Just kidding. And then under that, we also have the SMPTE hours as well, 1 per every song. We're using hour 0 for anything pre-service, generally. Hour 1 for the first song, 2 for the second, 3, and so on. So we've got all of those kind of going on here. These are all routed externally. This is so that if we ever need to hit this solo button here, it won't cut off the SMPTE. It will just solo the click, and it won't actually flip over to the backup rig. So before, if we soloed the click, 1K would go away, and then it would flip to the backup rig, and we'd be off, and it'd be on a different machine. So this is kind of like the external audios plugins here are so that we can solo the click, and the 1K doesn't stop. Okay. Under this MIDI folder, we've got this setup folder. So setup is kind of anything that goes into our ears on stage. We have this reference track folder. Mostly this is for us when we're building the session. But if your band ever gets into a rehearsal or whatever, and they're like, man, I can't remember how that part goes, every once in a while, these will all be full of songs, but it's pretty rare. So just kind of, it's not that useful. Under that, we have click. Obviously, this is the click to keep us on track. We've got a tempo, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but this is what these songs are slaved to. So when we change the tempo within these files, it determines the speed that we do each of those songs. Within this, we have the stop button. A small mini note here. This is that you can copy and paste, and if you ever need to stop after a song or whatever, you can just copy and paste and put that stop cue there. The note will actually trigger this stop button here at the top, and then your session will stop. So that's what that's for. More often than not, everything is pre-planned, so you don't actually have to move things around, but that's what this channel is for. The loop channel, this is for when we do just looping sections, welcomes or worship thoughts. That's again another MIDI note situation where we place a MIDI note within this channel here, the loop channel. When it hits this note here, it will automatically trigger to the welcome loop, and it'll just loop forever until your band's ready to continue on. Okay, guide, this goes with click, just something to keep us on track. And then this is new, so we're going to talk about it a little bit. It's a roadmap feature. This is nothing that interferes with anything musically other than during rehearsal, if your band wants to take that first chorus to the end again, all that you need to do is click on this chorus chunk. It's separated out into song sections, and then you can start it from there instead of feeling like you have to start from the beginning to get one part of the song again. Under here, we have our song folders. These are where we have all the wave files from drums all the way down to BGVs. So that's bass and guitars and keys and strings, and I think there's a song with mandolin in it. So those are all in these folders. We've got them separated out per song so that we can edit them differently as far as like mixing the channels go and stuff like that. It doesn't, if you have keys 1 in one song, it won't affect keys 1 in another song because they're in different groups. Finally, at the bottom here, we've got our returns. These are where we send each of these kind of folders and files to. And it's pretty much labeled out so that you don't have to think that hard about it. Click and guide goes to channel 1, and these are all labeled to the right of each of the things that they're labeled as. So click and guide, that's kind of everything within the setup folder up here, up at the top. Everything there goes to the click and guide, so that just comes to our ears and not into the house. Melodic, that's kind of anything paddy, anything keys-wise, anything non-special, like nothing that like sticks out, but adds a kind of just a bass layer under you, under the band to kind of give more oomph to the song. Perk, that's percussion, any drum, anything, tambourine, whatever, shaker, booms. There's a song that says boom on it, so that's in there. Electric guitars are electric guitars. Special, okay, this is the thing where this one is kind of up for interpretation a little bit. We kind of like put anything any hook line of a song. So if I think about the song Who You Say I Am, da, 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 that line is going to kind of be in this channel 7. If there's nothing, I don't know, if there's nothing that super stands out in the song, or if someone in the band is playing those main parts, maybe you'd put something like strings in there, or maybe, you know, that's why it's up for interpretation. So these are all kind of like edits that the campuses will make after I kind of initially send out whatever I think is best. Okay, and then channel 8, in the return, BGVs are background vocals, so any gang vox, any choir stuff, anything like that, that'll all get sent here. And then last but not least, synth bass is synth bass. It's separated out from everything else, and it goes down channel 9. Cool, that's all like kind of right side things, and these on the right are all referred to as channels. So you have kind of your wave forms here on the left, where I'm clicking over here, and anything within these folders are wave files, and these are all sent through channels. Channels on the right, waves are all on the left. So the other portion of navigation that is super helpful are these locators. This is where we kind of like have just the song starts as well as the kind of looping section starts. So if you come up here, I think it's like kind of hovering over the measure markers here, 57, 65. So if you're anywhere over that, you'll be able to click and drag up and down. Down is to zoom in, and up is to zoom out, okay? And this is kind of like a way that I kind of quickly navigate to like where I need to see what's happening or where I need to be at. So if I'm looking for the start of Living Hope, I'll go to, I'll move my little magnifying glass just above the song title, click and drag down, and I'll be able to see the start of Living Hope here. Cool, so these are usually key mapped. This is, if you're just on your laptop, usually this is really helpful when we're editing and we're not connected to kind of this whole rig. If I'm just on my laptop or in my office, I kind of generally try to key map these things ahead of time. So if you look in the top right-hand corner, it says key, and here's one that says MIDI. Key is anything on your keyboard, so it'll turn orange. This is where you can select your locator. I'm gonna go ahead and delete these guys, and we can start from scratch. So if there's nothing mapped on the key, you'll see that there aren't any like numbers or anything over the little locators, which are the flags where the song starts are. So to map them, I just go ahead and click on the locator and then hit the number that I want assigned to that. So the top of the session, I'll usually map to 1. And then this next part, 2, is into the verse. So why I don't want to map this one is because this is the start of the looping section, and we need to leave that open for actually this MIDI note here to be able to register that it needs to go back to that, meaning we can't double map something. So you just map it the one time with the MIDI, and we'll get into that a little bit later, okay? So mostly just song starts and then verse starts, and that's what we're looking for the locators for the starts of portions of the song. To continue on, number 3, Love's Calling Out. I'm going to map that to number 3. 4, Living Hope to 4, 5, and so on. So this is just a quick way for us to kind of navigate through our set. If we're like, hey, let's take it from Love is Calling Out, I just can hit number 3, and it'll start us
1,
right there.
2.
Great. Cool. So the same idea is actually with the MIDI controller. So I come in here, and more often than not, things are going to be MIDI mapped, and we're kind of still in the beginning. I don't know, I would say it's still in the beginning phases of kind of taking a centralized session and sending it out to the campuses. And so every once in a while, we'll kind of like miss, or it'll be mapped one off if we forgot to put a locator in earlier in the set. And so it's really important just to make sure you go through and kind of map everything just to make sure that song 3 isn't accidentally mapped to song 2 here, and kind of so on, which I know for a fact this one is wrong. So we're going to just go ahead. It will reassign once you click and use your MIDI controller to map it. And so you don't have to like go into this side section and delete everything. I would actually advise pretty strongly against that, because once you delete everything in this side section, it actually gets rid of all of the looping MIDI notes too. So instead of doing that, I would just go ahead and click the locator and hit number 1, and click the locator, click number 2, and it'll come up with this. Great. The selected key conflicts with previous mapping to locator 3, Love is Calling Out. So it'll say, hey, this MIDI note here is already mapped to a different locator. Are you sure you want to overwrite that? So it will change it on its own, and it will unmap the third one, and you just say yes. And so let's continue on through 3 to 3, and it'll continue doing that. So 4 says it's already mapped to number 5. That's okay. 5, and hey, these last 2 were right. Crazy. Okay, so that's kind of like MIDI mapping, and then once you're kind of in that zone, you'll be able to quickly just navigate 1 through 2. It's really small, but over here, you'll see this little red, it's the cursor, okay? So that's how you know that it's moving from song to song. If I push 1, it's here. If I push 2, you'll see it move. Everybody see that? 3, yes? Great. So that's how you know kind of which song you're on. It's really subtle, but if you just look, it's right there. That's kind of like basic navigation through Ableton. If you're just like, hey, I just want to like come through and play through the songs really quick, put it in the PA. That's the way that you'll be able to quickly navigate your way through.